Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 67. Again, we'll give you a look into our week ahead and give you and compare our analysis from our last week video as well. So we are going to look at gold and euro USD tomorrow. But yeah, we are going to check in with Nzd Usd first. So what we looked at last week was we was expecting pretty much a retracement. And what we can see, price is essentially doing that right now. So what we were mentioning last week was we're just waiting for price to find its kind of area of resistance so that it can continue to push down, and this is where we could be looking at for those sells to continuate those pushes towards the downside. So for me, I'm looking out for price to push lower, and we can look at 0.69 as a potential target, and then from then we're going to be looking out for our next move, which we need to discuss. So what we potentially are looking out for is for price to make its way to the downside, test this area, and then if we see some strong signs of change of momentum, which we are expecting to do, then we could be looking at some massive gains towards the upside. So that's again just a long-term projection. So I'm not saying it will definitely do that, but and definitely we're not going to see that all in one candle, let's just say. It's going to take time for price to do that, but I definitely am looking out for some changes on the higher time frames. So as we can see here, price has pretty much been selling off, so in a nice downwards channel, but as we start to push lower and lower, eventually we could be considering a change of price action. So just going to now shift this really and just get this prepared for next week. So ultimately what we're going to be doing is just seeing if we are turning towards the downside and to see if we can get into 0.69. So that's pretty much our target. So whether that price, this is another thing, so whether that price pushes up higher and then pushes lower, or if this strong candle towards the downside is the main move, then we can wait for something like this on a retest and look for those continuations lower. So just keep that in perspective and in mind. And also, we are at 0.71, so this could be a potential sell-off opportunity right now. So definitely just keep an eye on that, and we'll see what happens with this opportunity through this week. So yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about for Nzd. Let's take a look at Aud USD. So pretty much a similar story. What we can see here is we've had price retrace. So that's what we were pretty much looking out for. I wasn't really too keen on taking any buying opportunities, I'll be honest, through this week. Really just wanted to stay with the momentum. So as we can see, price had made a way towards the upside, and what we ultimately are looking out for is just pretty much the same thing with Nzd USD. It's pretty much price to kind of turn over, just following on with this momentum. So really just sticking out with this. So if we did something like this, we can see prices really rallying through this area. So once we start to see an exhaustion candle or some sort of push strong momentum strength towards the downside, could be looking out for those continuations lower. So ideally what we could be looking out for is, if this is the strength towards the downside, then what we could be looking out for is something like this as a retest and a push to lower. So what I'm looking out for is for price to roughly go into 0.745 or even 0.74 as a long way down. So like I said, this does have a potential for a good 100 odd so pips. So again, for me, that's ideal and something worthy that we can put our risk to reward to. So again, what we are looking out for the long-term vision, though, is after we get to this point, this is where we're going to be keeping our eyes peeled, because in this area, this is a lot of free space for us. As we can see here, there's a lot of range here. So this is where we could be expecting price to completely melt, or it will do another thing where it will completely react towards the upside. So again, this is where price action and understanding what to look out for is very key and crucial for the next up and coming trade. So we don't have to worry about that right for now. Just need to focus on the next move at hand, so which I believe is towards the downside. So we'll see what happens over the next few days or so. So looking at USD Jpy. So So what I'm personally looking out for is for price to make a way towards the downside. So what I believe we discussed from last week was that if price had made its way above 111, we could be looking out for some continuated momentum towards the upside. So this is why it's really important to wait for this retest, and this is a clear, good example of why we didn't really partake into this. So for now, what we can see is that we had price break this level, just simply touching over by a few pips, as we can see there. Now we all need to do is just wait for a retest, and as we can see right now, we haven't really got that much of a retest right now, but essentially I'm still keen to see if we can make a sell-off opportunity. So what we could be anticipating is for price to make its way towards the downside, but I'm not going to take any sells just yet. And let me explain why. So what we were saying was before is that if we start to see a break towards the upside, we needed to wait for a retest. So now that we've got price, potentially pushing up higher, we need to be absolutely confirm with this choice that price is either going to continue to push up higher, and if it can do so, then we will start to wait for more of a retracement, and then we can wait for something like this as we are looking up here. So waiting for price to pretty much do something like this, where it retests this top half of the price action and then wait for continuations up like so. So that's pretty much the game plan, really, what I have in mind with this. But as we did mention before, is that we are waiting for the sell-off opportunity, which I do think it has the possibility of doing so. So what I'm going to potentially do is either we can play it risky and essentially just take some trades within the sell area here, but if you did really want to play it safe, I would wait for price to pretty much take on some of our uptrends here. So wait for some price actions to kind of break. So what you could be looking out for is price to break this intermediate uptrend, wait for some sort of retest, and then that continuation lower. And those are some key points on, key levels that you can look out for, that, if you do want to take those sell-off opportunities. And I feel like if we break 109 or even the 110 level within this area here, around this area here, if we start to get into this area here and we start to see strength pushing lower, we could be looking out for that, for continuation lows potentially on in the next up and coming week. So like I said, you don't have to trade every single setup that we mentioned. This is the beauty of trading. You have to just take trades that are best, that are setting up in the best possible scenario. So in my opinion, with USD Jpy, I'm kind of putting this on a back stool, but I am keeping it in mind of any potential sell-off opportunities. Excuse me. So the other thing that I wanted to mention as well is the fact that we have what's it called, the NFP week. Sorry, my mind completely went blank. So the NFP is this week on Friday. So this could be a very slow week, which I am potentially anticipating for. So this could be a massive build-up for when the NFP does release. We do get a natural release of pressure towards the downside, or if it's going to push up higher, then we'll naturally see a retest or push towards the upside. So like I said, I'm not really too keen on taking a trade this week for USD Jpy, but if I do, it will be on a very small scale trade, and but like I said, it can always vary upon as data releases and as time goes on. So by Monday, I could have a complete different situation and outlook on USD Jpy. Again, it just depends how price performs over the next few days or so. So that's something that you just have to kind of keep in mind and play the ball with. So again, like I just mentioned before, pretty much just keep this option in mind, where we could be looking at for sells if we start to see this break of uptrend. But if we start to see more of a push towards the upside, breaking these highs, then we're simply just waiting for some sort of retest. But like I said, just going to keep this in the back of my mind for now, and we'll come back next week and see what happens. So looking at Cad Jpy, so this one has been on my mind for as well. Pretty much been in two ways with this. As we can see, this huge drop off, but then it's been naturally counteracted with this huge push up in momentum too. So I've been looking into this in a bit more detail, and I do believe that we could be looking out for some momentum moves towards the downside. Now this one's going to be a very tricky one, and it's going to be a very small area for where price action can move. So ultimately, you know, we're going to be looking at for price to come all the way down to here, but we can just take it simple and make it towards the 88 range. So 88 flat is where we could just be looking into as our first initial target. So if we can do that, you know, I'm expecting price to make its way towards the upside and break towards the low. So this would be a 250 pip trade. Again, I'm not expecting you guys to hold this all the way. You know, it's a different scenario. You need to be looking at this from a perspective of just making a small percentage of gains over the matter of time, and you know, those profits compound over you know, in time period, you know. So essentially, yeah, you just want to be waiting for price to essentially look for that momentum to drop off completely. You know, you don't have to pick the tops and bottoms. You can be really simple about this, just waiting for price to simply make its way to the upside and then wait for that shift in momentum. So, you know, ideally looking for a strength candle like this could be your key entry point. You know, it's up to you how you trade. You know, your trading plan can vary from time to time, but essentially that's all you need to be looking out for, is just essentially that momentum and then waiting for some sort of retest maybe, and also, you know, you don't have to jump the gun. So for this, in order for us to take this trade and for us to be confident in this, we need to wait for this momentum shift towards the downside, and then we can be looking into this. So the key point in looking out for that shift in momentum is that if we don't get that shift in momentum, then what can happen is price will just push up, and naturally it will take all of this continuation, and it can be that there is a continuation higher. So it could look something like this, and that's where you look at that retest, and that's where you could be looking at that secondary entry. But by the time something of this nature happens, we will have obviously seen this and we can prepare for this. So like I said, it's all about perspective and waiting for time to unfold and letting the data show its hands first before you partake in the market. So that's kind of like my philosophy with the trading aspect right now. So yeah, so just tying this all together, pretty much we are in two states of mind here. We are looking at this downside move, but because it's actually recovered quite strongly, you know, we could be looking at potential continuation on a higher time frame, but also equally, this could be a chance for price to continue to push up even higher. So it is important to kind of stay back on this one and just kind of wait for price action to do its thing and then get involved with the market. So definitely you need to be keeping you need to sit on your hands for that opportunity. So moving on now to EJ. So for this one, I am looking out for some, you know, again, a different possibility with this. I am looking at a perspective shift towards the upside, but this will be a more, this will be more of a short-term play, and the long-term plays we can take on and come to the conclusion on a later date, just purely based on the fact that because of this high momentum towards the downside, not entirely too sure if we can push ultimately lower or higher. And that's really why I just wanted to just see if we can just take a few hundred pips from the market. That will be more than enough for me. And we can discuss the long-term projection later on a later date. So what we were looking at from last week was ultimately where we were waiting for price to pretty much recover. And as we can see right now, we've had this huge strength in the market. Now, what I'm looking at for this is just following on from that. You know, ultimately, what I could be looking into is for price to pretty much continuate this move towards the upside, and that's how really small I want to go. As low as this seems, small of a move this seems, it is kind of the smartest thing to do for now, in my opinion. You know, just going for 60 or 70 odd pips as a next move. That is, you know, in my eyes, still we can still take some profits here. We don't have to be greedy all the time. So essentially, what I am looking out for is for price to make potentially one more move towards the downside, and then we could be looking out for price to take into 133. and if we can do so, you know, there's still amounts to some good pips there. So really, you know, when we, you know, get that low, so let's say it's here, so price comes into this low and then rallies up, this would be the new low, and then we can simply draw on a trend like so. And then when we get to this point, we can discuss if price begins to rally up higher or if it starts to reject, and then we can look at the potential move towards the downside, which I did say before is that, you know, we can't really expect anything in terms of the long-term projection right now, because I'm quite mindful of this downside move as well as this upside move as well. So this kind of counteracts each other in the sense of price action. So it's better to kind of, sorry, I keep saying kind of a lot. It's better to wait for the market to show its cards first. And like I said, with the Cad Jpy scenario, it's a similar process really. So that's where my mindset is with that. So moving on to Nzd Jpy. So similar situation here. What we are looking out for is for price to really push lower or push higher. So for me, you know, if I was to say for this one, I think this has a possibility to push lower. And what we mentioned last week was a retracement into this area, and what we can see right now is we're potentially looking out for a turnover in the market. I'm liking the way that the price action right here is very small and weaker just by the multiple rejections of the upside, and as we can see that there's strength pushing in, but it's weakening as well. The other thing is that we do have a little divergence forming. Maybe we have one more push up higher and then a push lower. So that's something that we can be mindful of and keep in perspective. But like I said, if we do see price rally completely up, then, you know, we have to come back with the next week's solution. And, you know, it doesn't have to be anything complicated, right? We just have to understand that, yes, our analysis towards the downside was wrong. We may have got a trade, we may have hit break even, may have taken a break-even trade, or we may have even taken a loss. So, you know, but that, like I said, it's all due time. We can obviously prepare for the next move and for the next trade. So definitely keep an eye out for something along those lines where we could be waiting for price action to do its thing. So if we start to see more strength towards the downside, you know, that could be a key sign for price to get in on this, and we could be taking out this low of 76. So that's something that we could be looking out for. Or the alternative scenario is if we don't get price action, that the desired price action that we are looking for, then what we could be looking out for is something where price just rallies towards the side, just moves sideways and then shoots up. So yeah, something that could be there, but for now I just want to say that I think price has the ability to push lower. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but you know, perspective is everything, so we can change that analysis over the next few days, and that's obviously the beauty of trading. So moving on to Aud Jpy, following on from Nzd Jpy too, is I have a similar story with this. I do believe that we have the ability to push lower. I'm liking the way that price is rejecting as well on the upside. You know, it has strength in and then it's slowing down. I like this candle here where it does have that strong wick candle. So ultimately we just need to wait for price action now to just push lower. If we do see that, then I'll be confident that we could be taking some sells into 82, and this will be a good trade to take in for that week. I know this will be a very big trade, 200 pips. So like I said, definitely keep an eye out on this one. So yeah, coming to the last two pairs now, USD Chef. So what we looked at from last week was pretty much a potential return towards the downside. So we can see that price is pushing lower and lower, and we're ultimately just waiting for a recovery, so price to push up again. And this is where I think that what we could be looking out for is if price does start to push up higher, then, you know, there is a trade there, but you know, a nice 70 odd pip trade, that's good. But you know, there's something that I wanted to look out for. The bigger picture is a potential turnaround towards the downside, and we could be looking at price hitting into 0.89. So if price does manage to make its way up towards the upside through the week, and then we start to see some rejections like so here, we could be looking out for price to make all the way a move to all the way towards the downside, which is a good 300 pips. So I'm definitely keeping an eye out for that trade, hoping for price to, you know, push a little lower so that we can get in on this one, but if not, no problem. We can obviously, if price does make its way towards the downside, then that's great. We can look at an upside opportunity for a short-term trade, and then a potential long-term trades towards the downside into 0.89. So something that I'm keeping an eye out for. And again, it does depend if we start to see rejections for this downside. So again, I know this is a futuristic way, so because we can't really see anything, but again, it's dependent on that price action. So if we break this high here and we start to see a massive wick rejection, then we could be anticipating a potential low. But likewise, if we start to see a huge green candle and it's strong, then it's highly unlikely that we will start to see rejection or a reversal. So just keep that in perspective, okay guys? And yeah, so finally with USD Cad, what we're looking out for here is ultimately for price to, you know, wait for, like I said, wait for price action to do its thing. What I think can happen is a potential move towards the upside, though, as I'm liking that, you know, there is this momentum following up. So if we get rid of this, I think for last week what we were looking at for was that more of a a recovery towards the downside and then a push up. So we're currently on this stage of the analysis. So if we get rid of this right now and update it, what we could be looking at for is price to make one more push low and then a push higher. And then that's pretty much where I'll think about leaving it for this week. I don't really want to look at the alternative just yet. I just want to see where price can go and how strong it can make that high. And also be mindful of the fact that we have that NFP week. So we could end the week with that strong and that strength and rally towards the upside. So definitely going to keep an eye out for this pair. But yeah, hopefully you can see that there's a lot of opportunities up for this week, and we'll see how we can get in on some of these pairs, and hopefully we do so. But yeah, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I do appreciate your time for watching. If you are new to this channel, we do have a trading group that you can join. That link is in the description also. And we yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. So that will be all from us. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you all in our next video.